Hello everyone, it's Kendall here. If you're new around here, welcome. If you're not new around here, what is up, home skillet biscuit? Happy Saturday. And if you're familiar with my channel, I generally do a thing where I talk about movies on Saturdays and do my makeup. But to be very, very frank with you, I prepared nothing, and here's why. Was spending too much time watching The Ultimatum to actually do that. So instead, I figure, let's just talk about this show because it is easily the most chaotic shit I've seen in a while. It's the only thing that's keeping Netflix light on is messy shows with the Lachey's, and I am obsessed. I've seen the entire series now 2 or 3 times, and I just need to talk about it in case you haven't seen it. Even if you have seen it, you can just hear my commentary on it. It'll be a fun time. So yes, this video is gonna be just as much of a mess as the actual show itself. I'm gonna talk about it episode through episode. This is gonna be a long one. I already know, so I have myself a snack and some leftover cookies that I got from Crumble yesterday. Whorish. These are whore cookies. Slut cookies. These are delicious. We should send it over to our sponsor quite speedily because we need to secure a bag in case Netflix on the bullshit. So send it over to Admiral Kennie. Thank you. Why, hello everyone, it's Admiral Kennie to let you know that today's video is sponsored by NordVPN, the virtual private network that I personally use for all my specific, secure internet browsing needs. I've always compared Nord to like an internet condom, and I've gotten away with it up until this point, so I'm going to continue to do that. Where you can securely browse anywhere, any place. You can put it on your computer, you can put it on your phone, you can put it on your tablet, so that wherever you go, to have secure browsing, even on public servers if you're out and about. And also if you're browsing at home, it allows you to browse. I've said browse like 12 billion times in one sentence. Browse without your internet provider knowing all your business. If you're like me and you blew a fuse in your office because you tried to plug in too many things at the same time, you found it really great to have Nord when you had to use a public server at a local coffee shop to make sure that you could check your bank statements and also search how to fix a broken fuse. It's okay. I just plugged in too many things and it flipped the switch. It's cool. And also one of the best things you can do with NordVPN is internet travel, if you will, to find things like shows and movies that you can't find in the US. See if you can find it on Canadian Netflix or South African Hulu. I don't know if Hulu is even in South Africa, but you get what I mean. Whatever. Go to a different place, even if you can't go to a different place. Feel free to go to nordvpn.com/Kennie and use code Kennie to get a 2-year plan at a huge discount plus a free bonus. And it's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Big thanks again to Nord for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get on to the debauchery, baby. Even before we get started on the show, the Lachey's, they have a very particular gaslighty persona, and I love it. They say it in a way that makes it seem like we're just trying to help you with personal development, helping you test what you want out of life. And it's like, shut the up. You're doing this because you're messy. Just admit it. Come on. I'm watching it because I'm messy. Anyway, so the show is called The Ultimatum. Marry or move on. Again, it's from the same makers of Love is Blind. And because I never got a chance to talk about either season of Love is Blind because short and sweet of it, Shake, Shane, and Shayna, all messy, terrible people. That's the footnotes version of it. But this show's entire premise is that they take 6 couples, each of which has one person that's issuing an ultimatum. Basically, marry me at the end of the show or we're breaking up. Throughout the show, though, there's an experiment where they'd like couple swap. They take a person here and a person there. Everybody does like a speed dating thing to pick a new trial husband or wife. And they spend time together for 3 weeks. And at the end of that 3 weeks, they come back to their original partner, spend 3 weeks with them. And then at the end of that, they decide what they're going to do. Are they going to go with the new person? Are they going to stay with their original person? Are they going to break up and just leave with no one? I have never seen something such a bad idea with so many willing participants. Chaos! And I loved every messy minute of it. Why would anyone bring their partner on the show? Because there ain't no way in hell if I feel like I have to drag you onto Netflix for millions of people to try to force somebody to marry me. It's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And then I'd be even more embarrassed if I brought you on there thinking that I could make you, for some reason, believe you can marry me and you want to marry me now. And then you end up leaving me for another bitch that you meet on the show. Again, embarrassing. I would never open myself up like that. All my L's are taken in secret. I would never. I would never. I understand that some people do it for a clout chasing endeavor, but clout can't be that expensive. But no, each person that issues the ultimatum, they have no sense of shame, no sense of self-preservation or preservation for their relationships. Makes sense the more I started to think about it, because to do a show like this, you have to be a very particular person, right? The only way you'd be willing to do this is A, clout chasing, but that's any reality show. B, you have to be in a very insecure relationship, and you have to be a very insecure person as well. You know, if you felt that you can just leave the relationship, you would have left it. If you felt like issuing this ultimatum would do it less to make somebody marry you and more so to give clarity off of what you both want and what you're both willing to do, you wouldn't be on this show. So it attracts very insecure people and people in insecure relationships. It also attracts very young people by proxy. Not that you have to be young to be in an insecure relationship, obviously not. Most of the contestants are very young to be speaking so heavily about marriage, in my opinion. Like, most of the contestants, especially the women, are under 25. Most of the women are the people issuing ultimatums. They're very young and have a very shallow and stunted and childish understanding of what marriage even is. A lot of them think in this very gender role way. He should marry me. I cook, clean, and I have sex. Why would you want to be with a person that doesn't want to marry you? Why would you want to marry someone that's not joyfully marrying? You know what I mean? I just don't understand. Ooh, just don't get married. But a lot of them feel like they're at the place that they want to get married. They want to have babies. I'd argue a lot of them don't even want to get married, in my opinion. They just want to be married to say that they're married. And it's really fascinating to watch as an objective party how none of these people should be getting married. And another thing, maybe in relation to the everyone being young and in a rush, and also people being very insecure, they're also all horrible communicators, painful to watch at some point. Again, childish, insecure, jealous, because of course you are. You put yourself in a situation where your partner is going to be with someone else for 3 weeks. You didn't think that was going to elicit some jealousy. I don't know. Basically, they attract people who are great for television. Again, no sense of self-preservation, no embarrassment. And so today, my goal is to talk to you guys about all 10 episodes. So again, this is going to be a long video. I'll put timestamps down below. I just must discuss the entire experience of watching The Ultimatum, Marry or Moving On season 1. Because I'm sure they're going to make more of them, because again, they're keeping the lights on at Netflix, and I gratefully appreciate it. Thank you very much. Be as messy as you want to be. It's great television. So first off, let's introduce the couples, the original couples. There's Ray and Zay. From the moment I saw them, I just got this vibe that he cheated on her, which I feel bad because I had no evidence. I just had this vibe. I was like, he done cheated on her. Now, I will say there's no evidence of that. Well, there's no confirmation of that, I should say. There is some little evidence along the way that makes my suspicions sound more likely, but I digress. Anyway, they are a couple who has been dating for a few years. That's another thing. Most of these couples haven't been dating that long. They've been dating for a year and a half, 2 years, and they're like, I want a ring on my finger. And it's like, babe, you're 22 and you've been dating for 2 years. Chill. But Ray and Zay, she issued the ultimatum, and when we first see her, she seems nice, albeit a bit kind of pick-me-ish. I know how to I know how to cook, I know how to clean, and it's like, stop trying to prove yourself to men. I get used to her more. She's just very quiet and reserved and chill. From the jump, their relationship is really weird because she issued the ultimatum, but she seems to be the person who's most reserved in their relationship. So it almost feels like he issued it. He's basically saying throughout the show that she doesn't open up. She's not emotional. She's not communicative about her emotions, and he's constantly trying to get her to open up. Over time, we begin to realize that the reason she doesn't open up is because Zay is very argumentative and she just doesn't want to start arguments all the time. Also, we'll find out that Zay had a very traumatized childhood, and that shows in how he interacts with Ray. To be quite frank with you, he doesn't strike me as a person who's been able to process his trauma enough to be in a relationship, in a healthy one, because he's constantly so reactive, because he's constantly being triggered, but he isn't working through those things. So, okay, next up is Alexis and Hunter, who are annoying as fuck. Like from the beginning, you can tell that Alexis is like going to be perhaps somewhat of a villain of the show. That doesn't entirely go as planned. If you've seen the show, it ends up happening in a very interesting way that isn't quite what we thought it was going to be. Alexis is definitely falling into Netflix's perpetual trope of like messy blonde women on dating shows. Opinionated, and she has a very like loud, obnoxious, overwhelming personality in my opinion. She's almost like comically, stereotypically superficial and money focused. She is in many ways like a male podcaster's idea of like all women. Incredibly shallow. I will say that she seems genuine, if that's any consolation prize. Like she seems honest and forthright. But yeah, she brought Hunter onto the show, obviously feeling insecure about their relationship because he hasn't jumped at the chance to marry her. As far as Hunter, there's not really much to say on Hunter. He said maybe 3 words the whole show. But he's really just kind of like Alexis's shadow. Madeline and Colby. Oh, bitch. If anyone's gonna talk about a couple in this show, it's gonna be Madeline and Colby. I don't even know where to start. They are both not great. They're both incredibly toxic, really messy. From the first interview, like 3 seconds into the show, Madeline's like, I'm trying to someone else. On this show, my goal is to someone else, basically. And I have my eyes on somebody, and my boyfriend Colby is so fucking annoying. Like, I wish he would just like talk to other people and leave me alone. And at that point, I'm like, why are y'all together? And then Colby, on the opposite side, he's actually who issued the ultimatum, which makes him one of the few men that do so. He just had this vibe that I do not rock with. Well, to be very honest, he reminds me of this guy I was dating. Everything is so over the top. Everything is super love bomby. He's like, she's everything. She's my dream, my aspiration, and she's everything I ever wanted. And like, I saw her and my whole world, like everything was slow motion. And he's just that type of guy. And I just don't trust that type of energy, because in my experience, guys who are like very like that don't exist in reality. Like, they don't see people. He just kind of likes the idea of falling in love or chasing after this person. If we're nicer about it, he's quite idyllic and romantic. As things go along, a lot of my suspicions were confirmed. I'm like, no, I've peeped you before. I'm getting ahead of myself, but yeah, they're just bad. Both of them are incredibly toxic. And I'm just sitting there like, my God, please break up. Like, breaking up is an option. We don't have to do this. Next up is April and Jake. Also annoying, but in a different way. April, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the youngest people on the show, and it shows. Her immaturity is just palpable. She seems like genuine, big-hearted person, but also incredibly petty and reactive. She's also very much so in a rush, largely because she does have infertility issues, and she's afraid that she won't have enough time to try for a baby. And she's like, I want a baby right now. I want one right now. And she's only like 22 or something like that. She's like, I want a baby. I'm going to be married. I want it. And Jake is probably the most reluctant to come on this show. She issued the ultimatum. I don't have any strong positive or negative feelings about Jake. I feel like he's just a guy in this awkward circumstance that he's been put in. I think some people really dislike him because he's gonna hit it off with somebody, spoiler alert. But I'm like, well, that's the point of the show. You shouldn't have brought him on the show if you didn't want him to hit it off with somebody else. You know what I mean? I'm not going to blame him for hitting it off with somebody else. Shanique and Randall, who are very attractive as a couple. Oh my God. Shanique is in a similar way to April. She seems like she has the ability to be a good person. When she's able to be objective, she has really good advice for people. But when it's about her, stubborn, bullheaded. She's probably a Taurus. What I see is what I see, and I can't see anything else. If someone's trying to give her any form of like constructive insight, she's like, I'm the one that gives out the recommendations. You don't talk to, like, that type of energy. Definitely one of those people that just had very unrealistic expectations going into the show that she brought her partner on, her boyfriend on. She just expected to bring him on the show and he would be miserable the whole time and then realize he wants to be with her instead of like meeting other people and enjoying his time. Again, I just think it was very stupid to bring him on the show if you didn't expect him to possibly enjoy himself. As far as Randall, he just really fine. That's the only thing I got from it. He fine as he seems nice, chill. He's not in a rush to get married for financial reasons, and also just because, you know, Shanique isn't the easiest person to be around sometimes if you look at the show even. And then finally we have Lauren and Nate. Not much to say about Lauren. She seems really chill. Nate actually issued the ultimatum, which makes him one of only 2 guys who issued the ultimatum. And I will say, I knew I wasn't gonna like Nate because his name is Nate. Most Nates I've met are terrible people. Their big issue is that he wants kids and she doesn't. So the first episode, we are introduced to all the couples, but beyond that, it's also a sort of speed dating week in which each of them get to know each other and decide who their new partner is going to be for the 3 weeks during the experiment. And of course, by nature of this very idea, all of the original partners are like in the same like general vicinity as these speed dates are happening, and they're jealous. And I was just like, this is the messiest idea. I love it. There are certain people that kind of knew from the jump who they were going for, particularly Madeline, who is so messy. From the jump, she's like, I saw Randall. I want Randall. I will say, I ain't gonna hate on the bitch for her flirting, because she said, I know who I want and I'm getting who I want. Like, I feel this energy. Like, you're so sexy in your tattoos. And I was like, okay. I'm not gonna hate on the game because she seems to do it well. She is toxic as fuck, but she knows her strengths, all right? But basically, her and Randall end up connecting because they both just complain about their respective partners. Because just watching that scene at first, I thought it was very like kind of awkward. Was he like being overwhelmed by her just like unleashing how much she can't stand Colby? If you hate him so much, just break up. Oh my God. But no, they start to like kind of commiserate. He's like, nah, Shanique is a pain in my ass. So you basically can already tell they're going to be together. The next to have a pretty undeniable connection is Ray and Jake. They have a lot in common. And immediately it was like, y'all should be together. They have a lot in common. They seem to just really genuinely enjoy each other's company. And that's kind of the vibe you get through the entire like time that they spend time together. You know, they get along on the little things at first, and then you really start to realize that these 2 people make sense together. Their respective partners are such heat and chaos at all times. It was nice to just see 2 people just kind of genuinely, innocently enjoy each other. Shanique and Zay, as well as Shanique and Nate, start to hit it off. And then the rest of the people seem to be just kind of floundering, if that makes sense. Either one person is more interested and the other person isn't, or 2 people are interested in the same person. One of the more chaotic situations in which that was happening is Alexis and Colby. So Alexis is into Colby. Colby is not into Alexis. Colby's into Lauren. But the thing is, Lauren doesn't want kids. Colby does. He's another person who wants kids. He wants the family. He wants the, you know, picket fence and whatever. And I think this is when I started to, again, notice more of those things about Colby that I find red flags. He ends up being quite popular on the show. Like, a lot of the girls were like, I would do a fake marriage with Colby. I would do one with Colby. He's so attractive. He seems nice. He seems like somebody that really is wanting marriage, you know? And I think that would be good to work with someone like that for this experience. But he wants specifically the person who's not obtainable. The person who doesn't want what he wants. Every other woman on this show wants kids. And he goes to the girl who doesn't want kids and kind of does this thing where he's like, I hope I can convince you, basically, to have kids if we were, you know, to go down that road. And maybe along the way, like, I could see myself, like, you know, being with you. And it's like, she already has a man trying to convince her to have kids and she still doesn't want to have kids. Why not go with any of the other women here that want to have kids? To want someone who wants what he wants is not a challenge. He likes the act of manipulation. He wants to work someone into what he desires and what his ideal is, as opposed to just going with someone who is closer to that ideal for him. Like, it was funny because I was watching this with a friend and she really liked Colby, and I'm like, no, bitch, no, I get a vibe. No, I don't like it. She was like, wait, he seems so nice. Nah, I don't know what's about to happen, but nah, I don't like Colby. But again, he's trying to work with Lauren, who doesn't want kids. And then Alexis is interested in him, but he's not really interested in her because she goes on and on and on about how she really wants someone who has money, and Colby doesn't have any money. So he's like, I don't think that I'm what you're looking for, so it's fine. She eventually ends up sharing with him that he's who she's thinking of picking. She thinks he's closest to what she wants in the show, and he is awkward but honest that he's not really seeing that happening between them, and he doesn't want to waste her time or waste his time, and he just lets her know, like, yeah, no, I don't think that's gonna happen. And she doesn't take this well, which again, don't join a show if you don't want your L's to be public. Oh my God. How can you decide that already? Like, we've barely even spent any time together. How do you know that you don't want to try anything with me? I think it's very rude for you to just basically say already, no, I don't want to be with you. And it's like, babe, just take the L. Just sometimes you just gotta take the L. It's the L. It hurts. It's embarrassing. Again, I wouldn't come on the show if I was afraid of being embarrassed on TV with a million people watching. So that's the end of episode 1. We meet the couples. The couples meet each other, and they start to, see who they're gonna pair off with and see where that's gonna go. Episode 2 starts with Alexis not taking her L very well. You brought us on the show. Everyone's gonna see it now. That is your doing. You gotta think things through before you start. But she's like pushing. She's like, why do you know it's not me? And I'm like, babe, there's other people. Just pick one of the other people. He answers in this very like salesman way. He's like, that's a very valid question, and he kind of just awkwardly admits that he's not attracted to her. Now, it stings. It hurts, babe. I know. Embarrassing. I would not have come on this show to be embarrassed like that. But now that you're here, now her ego is wounded, and she's like, that's very rude to say. You could have said it nicer. And I'm like, no, he couldn't have. There's no nice way to say that. I don't like Colby, as I've already stated. As you've already seen, I don't like Colby. Even before he does his other worse things, he didn't do anything wrong. He just was honest with you. He's like, I'm not attracted to you. And if I'm gonna do this like fake marriage for 3, or if it is fake, I don't know, test marriage, I don't know. He's like, I want to be attracted to them, and I'm just not attracted to you. And she starts to really badger him about that, like, well, I think you're an asshole for saying I'm unattractive. What did you want him to say? He told you before it's not gonna work, and you didn't take that as an answer, so now he's telling you what it is. He's not attracted to you. Instead of taking it well, she goes straight up to Madeline, his original partner, and was like, I think Colby is a terrible person, so whatever reservations you have, you should listen to it. And I was like, oh, it's good. It's so good. So there's a lot more drama in there. Colby starts crying in the bathroom about how much he loves Madeline and how he doesn't want to do this and how he doesn't want to be here. Everybody else is still like pairing off and deciding who they want to go with. As we get closer and closer to pairing off into these new couples, I couldn't help but ask, like, what are the limits here? Are there any? Because it's hard to know what is expected of these new couples. Is it literally just supposed to be you living with someone for 3 weeks? Is that alone supposed to be the test? Are you expected to not be intimate with this person physically? Or are you expected to be physical with them? Are you fully broken up with your original partner? Are you supposed to treat this as if you're single? Occasionally talk as if, well, I'm single now, so I can do whatever. And it's like, or are you only single in the context of the show? If that makes sense. Like, you can't like go fuck somebody not on the show. That would be cheating. But if you fuck somebody on the show, that's a part of the experiment. I don't know. And again, these people are terrible communicators, so I'm sure they didn't talk about that before they got on the show. So I'm just sitting here like, how broken up are y'all? What does pairing off really mean? They have a dinner with the Lachey's. That's when you know some bullshit about to go down. And this is where they finally decide on their new partner. And can I just tell you, this entire scene, yelling, crying, sketch, Shanique had a connection with Nate and Zay, but eventually she chooses Zay. He chooses her back. They are now the new couple. Nate seems to be pretty salty about that. Ray and Jake choose each other. No surprises there. Again, they get along very well. Madeline chooses Randall. Again, no surprises there. They choose each other. They're a couple now. April is between Nate and Hunter, and she chooses Hunter. I haven't talked much about Hunter, but he was like consoling April at one point when she was crying about who knows what. Everybody always crying and yelling about something on this show, and she really liked that calming energy, so she was going towards Hunter. And this is now the second person that has not chosen Nate. He's the one that issued the ultimatum. Now the two people he thought he would end up pairing up with didn't even pick him, so now he's just kind of there. Alexis stands up and she's like, I don't want to be with anybody other than my original partner, Hunter. I love him. I don't want to do this. And the episode ends with Hunter proposing to Alexis. So there you go. Which is funny because the first time I saw this show, he just stands up and he's like, I want to marry Alexis. And for a second, I was like, is that not his original girlfriend? Did he just, because I thought he was saying April. I thought he was meaning April. I was like, he's been here for a week and he already said, my original relationship, I'm gonna marry April. That's ghetto. But no, it's his original partner. Okay, so episode 3 begins with that engagement. He goes over to her, he gets on his knees, he proposes, and they're together. So they're officially out of the show. They've decided to leave early. So Nate's there, having been rejected by 2 people essentially, and he looks at Madeline and he's like, I'm gonna choose you. I don't know if this is an editing thing, but I don't know if that's before or after she already chose Randall. So it's like, that's either even more messy depending on when he said it. And Madeline's like, why would you pick me? Colby chooses Lauren, and oh God, I just, again, that like, I don't want to use the word narcissism or narcissistic. I'll just say that. I'm not trying to diagnose him or anything, but he has a lot of narcissistic tendencies. I'll say that. He love bombs the out of Lauren, and it felt really heavy and really not deserved. At one point, he literally says, I know it might be kind of early to say I love you. And it's like, what? He's like, I'm just so lucky to have gotten to know her. And I'm like, you haven't gotten to know her. We've been here for a week. Like, this dude is so ew. Because to me, it felt like he was love bombing her to make her fall for him, for his own ego, and also to rub it in Madeline's face that maybe he's gonna have like a really great connection with a new person. Because Madeline's over here, I Randall, and the show just started. There's another shitty dude at the table, Nate, who suddenly doesn't want to do the experiment anymore. He just wants to leave with Lauren. I don't feel comfortable with Lauren and Colby leaving for 3 weeks. I'm gonna propose to her right now. I'm about to go. Again, 10 minutes before this, he was like, I'm gonna pick Madeline. But because he didn't get picked by the 2 people he thought he was going to get picked by, and his girlfriend is about to get picked by Colby, I didn't bring her on this show for her to get with some other guy and me get rejected by 2 people I wanted. And I'm just taking all the L's. Let me get engaged and go. And so he goes up to her and proposes. Again, the whole thing between them is that she doesn't want to have kids. He's like, I don't even want kids now. And it's like, what? 10 minutes? It's been 10 minutes? But yeah, he just proposed to her because he felt unwanted by the other people here. This, of course, starts an uproar because it, again, doesn't feel like the other proposal that happened at the same dinner where it was just like, I want to be with you. I don't want to be with anybody else. And they got engaged. This one was very like, nobody else chose me, so let's get engaged. And people call him out on it. Colby calls him out on it, but Colby's a bitch. And he's super dramatic too. He's like, I can see it in your eyes. You don't want to get married. Very presumptuous. Again, she was dating him for like 2 years before that. April kind of brings up the issue of like, you know, she starts crying and whatever. And she's like, y'all are not taking this seriously. You just feel rejected. You're not here to do what the point is, which is to have a learning experience to figure out what you really want. April and Colby end up pairing off together kind of as leftovers, but they wanted to still do the experiment because it was for the betterment of their relationships, because they both believe they're going to leave with their respective partners and they want to get the most out of the experiment as they can. Nate is real awkward and defensive, and it's just chaos. It's just so chaotic. But at the end of it, we now have our new couples. all put together. Again, Lauren and Nate are engaged now. They are now off the show. Hunter and Alexis are engaged. They are also off the show. I was really surprised about Alexis and Hunter particularly because Alexis is messy. I'm like, she makes good TV. I'm surprised they left so early, but they left. So our 4 remaining couples, the new couples, are now Zay and Shanique, Ray and Jake, Madeline and Randall, and April and Colby. So for the trial marriage, they all move into the same apartment complex and they each live together in an apartment with their new couple for 3 weeks. And things seem to be going well for everybody in the beginning. You know, they're getting used to the living arrangement. Some of them haven't even lived together before with a partner. So that whole experience, there's a lot of like awkwardness around, should we be sharing a bed? Of all the couples that have paired off, I just feel like Jake and Ray should just be together. They are so cute. So episode 4 is the first week of dating the new partners. Ray and Jake bond about how hard it is to have a partner that is, you know, popping online, how that makes both of them feel kind of insecure. April has quite a few followers on Instagram and shows, you know, guys are interested in her. And Zay, again, is a club promoter and he's on Instagram and on other places promoting, and she feels insecure because they're considering marriage and everyone online still thinks he's single. I understand why that would be hard for someone in a couple, but I also understand as an influencer, partially you just don't want people all up in your business. That's how I think about it. Like, why do you want everybody all up in your business? They also share a kiss, by the way. And again, because we don't know what is the limitations, it's like, should they feel guilty about that? They're technically single. As far as the edit goes, they are the first new couple to cross into that level of physicality. But again, they seem cute and I like their connection. So this episode, though, is largely devoted to each new couple introducing their partner to important people in their lives. Shanique brings Zay over to meet her family. Madeline brings Randall over to meet her friends. April and Colby seem to just stay quite domestic because they didn't really want to be together, I guess. Anyway, but they're making the best of it. They're having a good time. Ray meets Jake's mom and a friend of his from the military. Jake meets Ray's father, and it's just interesting to see the dynamic. They're asking questions about the experience. They're asking questions about the new partner. The most like dense meeting was Zay meeting Shanique's family, because again, he had a really hard upbringing and he doesn't really have a family structure. He kind of opens up about how hard that has been on him. Zay seems to be a good person that's been through a lot of shit, who doesn't really know how to navigate that, and it's bleeding into his relationships, bleeding into how he sees the world and how he navigates the world. But that's also something he has to take responsibility for, because who else is going to, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's just kind of how I feel about Zay. I feel like he shouldn't be in a relationship with anybody and he should really be like focusing on healing that at least a little bit first before you're going into relationships where it's really triggering that response for him. Because romantic relationships are very intimate, they're very raw and vulnerable by nature. So like he needs to get raw and vulnerable with himself a bit before he can really dive into something like that. You know what I mean? So later in the episode, the producers of the show, who are also devil incarnates, thought it was a great idea to have a boys' night out and a girls' night out. Obviously coached them to have the messiest conversations possible at these meetings. We want you to talk about the partners you're with, talk about if you've gotten physical at all, talk about if y'all been cuddling, talk about if y'all been kissing, and do it right in front of their original partners. Ray talks about how she kissed Jake. You know, April gets real passive aggressive about that because she's like, okay, well, he kissed you on the mouth, but he ate my pussy before we got here. Madeline is a bit much. And I also recognize that this is partially due to editing, I'm sure. But like, she talks about how great Randall is, almost in a sort of like sadistic way. She's like trying, it feels like she's trying to hurt Shanique. She's like, he's just so hot and he has kissed me. And I think he had a boner while we were cuddling. You know what? I definitely felt a boner. So like, listen to him. And also like on the emotional, like, here's why you guys have problems in your relationship. You don't listen to him. And it's it's so messy. And then at boys' night, Zay and Colby start arguing because it was weird. Because, well, Zay argues with everybody, but kind of what I got from the confusing conversation was that Zay was upset because Colby insinuated that when they went out off camera together to like a club or something, Colby said that Zay sent a girl over to make out with him. Colby willfully, like, enthusiastically made out with this girl, and he kind of tried to push blame off to Zay as if he made you make out with a girl. He was like, I didn't make you make out with anybody, and why are you lying on me as if I did? I can't make you make out with anybody. From what I understand, the point is you don't mess with people outside of the show. You mess with people within the show because that's the point of the experiment. But outside of that, that's just you cheating. So episode 5 is also messy. Shocker, we should know now. And it's taking place towards the end of the night of the boys and girls like nights out. And each person kind of comes back and relays the things that they heard and the messages that they heard during their respective nights out, which is great communication. Jake really started to exert how much he likes Ray. And I gotta say, between the two of them, he's the only one that seems to not be thinking of his original partner much. Ray is still, you know, she was very much so set on Zay. And now she's confused because she's really enjoying her interaction with Jake and she really likes Jake. So it's just really complicated there. Zay and Shanique argue for the first time on camera, at least, because he comes back and talks about how Jake told him at the boys' night out that he had kissed Ray. And he's kind of like, well, what am I supposed to do or whatever, right? And Shanique kind of makes a face about the situation in and of itself. And that sends Zay off. He's like, well, say what you got to say. She was like, I was just making a face. I was listening to what you said and I made a face. And now you mad because I made a face. And she's like, I think when I made that face, it made it more real to him that his original partner is really connecting with somebody else and he can't really do anything about it. And he gets very argumentative. He gets all up in her face and he walks out, which tends to be a pattern with him. He's an arguer. He's a let me run out, or, you know, he's an escape artist, if you will. Now with Randall and Madeline, Randall comes back and tells Madeline that Colby was making out with another girl at a club, and she does not take this well. She's partially drunk, but also saddened by that, I suppose. It's interesting because, again, up until this point, all she said is how much she can't stand Colby and how he's a terrible person. In the beginning, we don't even get a sense that she even likes her partner, her original partner. So now she's like crying. She's like, I don't care that he's making out with somebody else. I don't care. And it starts like an argument where it's like, you do care. Like, she doesn't want to hear about it. She's just really upset that he came in here and told her that. But all the couples do eventually make up if they were arguing. That's life. That's partnership. You argue and you come back together. What can you say? Shanique, after hearing about how much Madeline is into Randall, she decides to kind of break the rules. And she's like, I want to meet up with my original partner, Randall. And this is the most stupid ass argument. Wow, you really acting like we not together. Isn't that the point? And that's what he says. He's like, what? You brought me on this show in an ultimatum and now you're mad that I'm with another person? Like, why are you surprised that? And again, I'm sitting here like, why are you surprised that something physical would happen? You put them in a situation specifically for them to act like they're not with you anymore. So yes, they may make out with this new person. They may do anything with this new person. If you gave a about your relationship, why'd you bring them on here? What did you expect me to do? Just be miserable the whole time? She was like, yes, I expected you to be upset the whole time and miserable and miss me the whole time. And he's like, that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard, which it is. She's like upset that he's not upset. She's just so childish. She's like, okay, fine, you making out with her. So basically she's upset that he's not miserable without her. So she goes back to Zay and she's like, wow, he's really, you know, getting along physically with Madeline. Maybe, you know, we should do a little something. Now it's confusing to what degree they do a little something because of course they're not gonna put their sex tape out there. But I don't know if they did like she gave him a handsy, maybe a little blowy, little trip around the moon. I don't know what they did, but they did something of a sexual nature. That's how episode 5 ends. As far as we know, they're the first to go into a sexual, like explicitly sexual realm. Up until this point, everybody's just maybe kissed here or there, but they went to So episode 6 happens and we're finally at the end of the 3-week trial. Now it's time to switch back to your original partners and to compare and contrast what it was like with your old person with the person that was new for a few weeks, and see how you get along there. What insights you gained in that new relationship, what you wanted from your current relationship that you ended up getting in this new relationship, or vice versa, things that you missed from your original relationship and figuring it out there. Before they do the switch back, they have another Satan-led dinner with the Lachey's. They reflect on the experience. Again, Colby is the fucking worst. Like, he gives these speeches. I forgot to mention this. At the end of the last episode, Colby kisses April. It was the most staged looking thing I've ever seen. I don't know if he meant to kiss her or if someone on set was like, y'all should probably do something to spice it up before the meeting. But they do kiss. So he's over here talking about the experience with April. And it's like, all we did was see you guys ride horses at some point and kiss. And he was kind of acting like it was the most formative experience of his life. Realized all the things you have that my original bitch don't have. He says it in not so much the same words, but basically he's like, you showed me what I was missing in my current relationship, and like, you actually listened to me. And he was very, very heated. He refers to Madeline as the person that he thought he would be with, passive aggressive, talking up about this experience just to make Madeline feel bad, because the experience we saw wasn't all that groundbreaking, to be quite frank with you. You didn't have any breakthroughs that we saw. All you did was bitch about how you're not with Madeline. And so all of a sudden you're in front of Madeline and you're like, yeah, this experience was one of a kind. You made me forget that bitch. Like, April kind of talks about how she became like a better woman hanging out with him. He says something like, she became a woman in the time we were together. And it was just like, fuck you. Madeline even says that, how did you turn her into a woman? She got her period, she lost her virginity. And if those were the case, what about that are you taking credit for? Like, the rest of the couples have a reasonable display of positivity from the time they'd spent together with their new partners. Trials, tribulations, but ultimately a lot of lessons were learned along the way, and ultimately some confirmation on what they really want from their original relationship. For instance, Zay seems to be very sure that he wants to marry Ray now. Through the experience, he's like, I know what I want. I know I want her. I know I want to work it out with her. And once they get back together, she asks him explicitly, like, what did you do physically with Shanique? Now, knowing Ray, I think she would have been the type of person, she would have been hurt to hear that they did something sexual. I think she would have understood, like, yeah, I brought you on here. But he lies to her and he's like, we cuddled. And she was like, you just cuddled. And he's like, yeah, we just cuddled. She gonna see the show, right? The show will be playing at some point and she will see the show. And then when Jake and April get back together, they're going at it from the jump. Jake finds out that she was texting guys that were hitting her up at the club and stuff. And immediately when they're arguing, he goes straight to like, I didn't have to deal with this with Ray. That's what I loved about Ray. This is why Ray is so amazing. And I'm like, Madeline goes through Colby's Apple Watch and finds out that he had been texting way more girls. She knew about the one girl he made out with, but apparently he'd been making out with several women and had been texting them for weeks, complaining to the girl about Madeline. There's also some confusion for me around whether or not he actually went to one of the girls' hotel rooms and possibly, if he did, I'm sure he had sex with her. He said, oh, we're in an open relationship, which isn't true. They're not really true. If it is open, it's only, again, within the confines of the show. Apparently he did cut it off before Madeline found out about it. She's gonna confront him about it. He apologizes, but says, quote, I was doing it for you. I was doing it to make the experience real for you. He says like he wasn't getting the experience with April, so he quote unquote outsourced to another person. He complained to her about Madeline, and again he was doing it to make things real. Oh, I love that my gut feelings are correct. They are correct. They're correct. He feels like dead ass, I'm being put on trial for no reason and I was doing this for you, and he walks out. Messed around with a girl outside of the experiment for possibly 3 weeks, but he's mad at her because in his mind, I was just trying to make things real for you. Goes out all night, get drunk. When he finally comes back, still hungover, and she's like, we need to talk about what the hell is happening. And he just shuts her out. He's like, I don't have the energy for this. And he does this like self-pitying shit where he's like super sarcastic and patronizing. And he's like, you deserve better than me, whatever. And she was like, okay, so I deserve better than you, but it's still my fault. And he's like, yes. Back with Zay and Ray, they're still arguing. One of her biggest issues with their relationship is that she never feels heard by him. And that's because he's always yelling. He complains that she doesn't open up, but when she tries to, he gets argumentative. So at some point, you just stop talking. When he finds that out, he starts crying and he feels bad about it. He was like, the person I love, has been upset our entire relationship, And I feel bad for him in the sense that a lot of it is because of his trauma that he hasn't gotten a reins on. But that's what happens when you don't heal. You keep hurting people that you really love. And so yeah, I'm not surprised. April and Jake start arguing again because she goes through his phone and finds a video of Ray twerking, and she gets upset about that because they were like out at a bar and it was public and she was just having fun and started twerking or whatever, and she took that bad. Yeah, I have videos of other bitches on your phone. And he's like, why are you going through my phone? I've never given you a reason to not trust me like that. I've never given you a reason to do that. And I've never gone through your stuff, which is true. That's very disrespectful, baby. My thing is, if I have to go through your phone to feel secure about you, either A, you're giving me a reason to not feel secure, so we shouldn't be together, or B, I'm not in a healthy enough place to be in a relationship. I'm not in a healthy enough place to trust, so I shouldn't be in a relationship. Either way, shouldn't be here. If I'm not going to choose to trust you, or if you're going to continue to make me feel like I can't trust you, those are two reasons y'all shouldn't be in a relationship. Madeline and Colby meet up with her friends, and he insists again, another argument breaks out that he was doing it for her. She kept saying like, you didn't do it for me. Could you do it for me if the only reason I found out about it is because I went through your Apple Watch? Which again, if you have to go through his Apple Watch, you shouldn't be together. The only reason I knew is because I went through your Apple Watch, and then you had to admit to it. How are you doing it for me and I didn't even know about it? How are you doing it for me and you were sneaking around on me? You're saying you did it to make it real for me, when in actuality, you did it to make yourself feel better because you wanted to regain power. Because I'm over with Randall and I'm enjoying my time, but you're here with April and you didn't want to be with April in the first place. So now you feel like you're losing. So you outsourced for your own ego, not because you did it for me. Because again, how could you do it for me and I didn't even know about it until I looked for myself? He's basically saying like, I cheated on you for the betterment of our relationship. It's like, there's a big blow up now in front of her friends, and her friends are like, you gotta leave him. You gotta go. He's not a good person. And I'm like, babe, listen. And I don't even like Madeline. She get on my nerves, but I was like, baby, now I see why you were so happy to get away from his ass. Oh my God. Episode 7 begins with bringing back Alexis's messy ass, and it's her bachelorette party. I don't know why that was so hard to say. Bachelorette party. And from the very beginning, it's messy. Are you getting the trend here? That's what the show is. It's very, very messy. April is like, whatever drinks you're making, can you make it virgin? Because I might be pregnant. And she says it to Ray, like right in front of Ray. She's like, I've been back with Jake, for a few weeks. I've missed my cycle by 12 days. We could be pregnant. And at the same night, the same conversation, Alexis is super, super messy. And she's like, Ray, you two have a connection. You and Jake have a connection. Now in front of his supposedly, possibly pregnant girlfriend, you guys have a connection, and it was real. And it was just so messy. And then April obviously gets upset. She's like, I've been dating him for 2 years. If I didn't want to be with him at the end of this, I wouldn't have brought him on the show. I think it's very disrespectful to be talking about our relationship like that in front of me, which is fair. It's very fair. Do you not want something with him, or are you afraid of doing it not to make April feel uncomfortable? Because if that's the case, that doesn't make sense to me, because if you like him, you like him. April storms out and I'm just like, wow. So they all take a group trip to like a winery or something, which was confusing at first, but then but you'll find out later that April's not pregnant. She thought she was, but she's not. All the couples come together, they hang out, and when they come back, Colby is like, I think we're the strongest couple, to Madeline. And she's like, why? And he's like, well, who do you think is the strongest couple? And she's like, probably Shanique and Randall. And it's true. At the time, they seem to have like worked through a lot of their arguments and they were coming together and just being better. They're going to keep fighting though, because that's how life goes. But they seem to have gotten to a better plane at this point. She's like, Randall and Shanique seem to be the strongest. And I don't understand where you got this idea. Like, we're constantly fighting. We're always fighting. I don't know how you think we're the strongest couple. He's like, is it because you saw Randall today? No, it's because we're not communicating well. The issue is between you and me. It has nothing to do with Randall. It's because we aren't working. Speaking, by the way, of Shanique and Randall, the thing about Shanique that gets me, again, and I've said this before, is that she seems to be genuinely someone who can give good advice and have good insight. But when it comes to herself, she's so blinded. She has no self-awareness. While they're good, like they were good, there was no issue going on between them. She just wants to start some shit. Well, she's insecure, so she wants to get validation. Since I've come back, he has all these things that I need to work on, that we need to work on. What does Madeline need to work on? Like, I want to know what her shortcomings are. Randall kind of says what I would have said. It's like, what does that matter? This is our relationship between us. Like, what does it matter what she does or doesn't need to work on? She won't let it go. She starts to get so frustrated. She was like, what does she need to work on? Because you say all this shit I gotta work on. What does she need to work on? And it's like, babe, one thing maybe you should work on is being aware of your vulnerability issues, and how instead of just saying, hey, I'm feeling kind of vulnerable because I feel like you had such a great time over there, and I feel like to some degree you were comparing that to us and it makes me feel insecure. Like, be vulnerable about that. It makes me feel jealous. But learning what she needs to work on doesn't benefit your relationship. Like, what does that have to do with your relationship? And he kind of says, like, I feel like you want me to say I had a terrible time over there just to soothe your ego. And I didn't have a terrible time over there. We didn't fight. I didn't have any issues over there. She gets real childish and defensive. She was like, well, f the ring. Back with Zay and Ray, he, says straight up, he's like, I want to marry you. My 3 weeks with the other person has shown me that what I want to be with you. I know that for a fact. I would like to get married with. And she says, I don't think I'm ready to get married right now. I want to continue my relationship with you, but that's just me being honest. He gets frustrated because he feels like he's been working really hard on communicating with her in the way that she needs, in the way that she likes, but she does kind of shut down in this conversation, which hurts Zay. His knee jerk is to get spiteful, and he leaves the house. He goes out with friends. He presumably gets drunk. Who knows what he does. And he's gone all day until the next morning, until 8 a.m. The episode comes to an end with Colby and Madeline. And she kind of vocalized the thing that I had always gotten from Colby, which is that he doesn't see her. She asks him, like, what are you in love with? Like, what do you know about me that makes you love me? Because I feel like you don't actually know me. You like the idea of me. You like the concept of me. And again, as a person that's not in their relationship and doesn't know them personally and only understands them through the filter of producers and editors and Netflix, I'm sure that some things got lost along the way. The thing about Colby that I garnered through the course of watching the show is that none of his attractions have anything to do with the women. It's him wanting to feel like this great guy. So if he's with someone who's open and willing and wants to be with him, then what's the point, right? He's very much so in love with the concept of making someone love him. Through the course of that, he doesn't really consider much about the other person and what they really are and who they really are. He's focused on the feeling of acquiring the love of another. And I just don't like him. But for some reason, the end of this conversation helps them come back together and become stronger. It's episode 8, coming to the end of the 3 weeks with your current partner. Continuing on with the argument between Zay and Ray. He comes back home. Apparently all through the night, he hasn't answered his phone. He had his location off. He didn't answer. And by the time he gets back, Ray is kind of done. She's like, I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. And it gets really messy. She believes that he probably cheated on her. And if he didn't cheat on her, he was still doing something that he had no business doing because he was gone until 8 a.m. the next morning. And so they break up. Then Shanique, having heard that Ray and Zay broke up, meets up with him as friends or something. I don't know. It sounds very messy. It sounds like the producers put them up to this, really, because they make it so that they're like kind of flirting. They're drinking together. We're supposed to see is that gonna happen? Because she is still with Randall, even though she's making all these arguments. She is still with Randall. But at the end of it, it does become a lot more of like an actual platonic conversation about him and Ray and why it didn't work out. And Shanique is like, I'm on her side. There ain't nothing you should have been doing until 8 a.m. There's nothing. There is not a damn thing you had to do until 8 a.m. He goes on about like his childhood and how that didn't set him up for the best, barometer on what is and isn't appropriate in relationships. He never had anybody tell him what was cool and what wasn't cool. Shanique brings up a valid point in my opinion, which is that you have to work through your trauma again. Like, you bring up your childhood a lot, and I understand that it turned you into who you are right now, but you're so much more than your past, and you're so much more than your upbringing. I understand that your trauma has you conditioned in a particular way, but you have to work to overcome those things so that you can be better with new people and with yourself. And when he hears about trauma and childhood, he goes off. Even though she was saying very reasonable things, he took it as her belittling his childhood, belittling his hardships from childhood. And it's like, nobody's doing that. But he's so trauma wired, he can't hear when people are actually giving him very valid and reasonable advice. Again, I'm happy they broke up because he really needs to focus on himself. It's very apparent that is the case. Ray and Jake meet up. She also tells him that I am now single. And you get this vibe where he's like, damn, because he's currently, trying to work it out with April. Like, he's invested a lot of time, money, effort into his relationship with April, and he doesn't want to just leave that, sunk cost fallacy and all that. And of course, we have to end the episode with the messiest couple, Madeline and Kobe. They have their last night together. They find, they've been made up a bit after all of the arguing. At the beginning of this episode, she's really like, I'm ready to marry him. I think we're there. I think he really does love me and sees me. But she asks him if he has any regrets on how they did this experience, how I went about making it real for you. And as you can imagine, because it would have started an argument with me too, she was like, you just keep saying you did it for me. You went to her hotel for me. You did that for me, even though I didn't know about it. You did that for me. And he's dead ass yes. And she's like, I can't be with a person who won't admit that they're wrong. And she leaves. It's super dramatic. Yep, she leaves. She's like, I can't do this. And they break up. And I was so happy. Because again, Madeline's not my favorite person. She's very messy, very annoying. But she deserves better than Colby. Colby's a jackass. So it's episode 9, and this is the episode where they finally choose how they're going to respond to the ultimatum. Unnecessarily long. Episode is about 40 minutes, and it definitely could be watched in 5, so I'll just give you the rundown. Spoiler, here you go. Randall and Shanique, he proposes. Kind of surprised me, but they got engaged. Jake and April, he doesn't propose because he says he's not ready for it himself. So she leaves. She decides that she wants to end the relationship. She wants to find someone who is madly in love with her the way that she wants to be madly in love. Jake says to her that him and Ray aren't going to run off in the sunset or anything, but he immediately afterwards offers Ray 2 tickets to anywhere in the world for them to spend a trip together. All niggas do is lie. Madeline and Colby apparently reconciled after their fight. He owned his shit, saying that it was for his own benefit. It was for his own ego that he did it. Proposes, she accepts, And he's like, let's get married right now. And they get married right there. It's like watching a train go full speed into a building. It's awful, but you can't look away. And Zay is still single. So that's the end of episode 9. Those are the couples. Here we go. Episode 10 is the reunion. This is now several months after the ending of taping, and they all come back together. Everybody got new wigs. Jake reminds us that there is 25% Nick in there. Madeline is pregnant already. Good for them, I guess. So, and because the Lachey's are the devil incarnate, they go straight to Nate, the guy who was really on about like how many kids he wants to have. And he's like, so they're having babies. How does that make you feel? Does that make you mad? Does that make you feel dead inside? And apparently him and Lauren have reached a conclusion and a compromise that they have decided to have one kid. Nate is still equally as unlikable as he was before. I'm not going to go into that. That's more of something you just need to observe because he's terrible. Jake and April are still broken up. She is actually in a serious relationship with someone else now. Seems to want to get married and have kids and, you know, be together or whatever. So good for her. Seems a little early because it's only been a few months, but he's already like, I can't wait to marry you. I can't, whatever. So she found what she wanted and, you know, all great to her. That's beautiful. Jake and Ray apparently didn't go on the trip together. They both thought maybe it was better that they take some time to heal. They did both get out of serious relationships and thought that it was a bit insensitive to just go, again, off into the sunset with each other to a trip together. Apparently Zay and Ray did try to work things out later, but it just didn't work out. Zay says that the night that he was out all night, he didn't do anything. He just fell asleep at a friend's house. Sure. Just like he was just cuddling. Yeah, I don't believe that shit. But since the end of the show, he hasn't been dating. Ray has been. She said she was in like a casual relationship with a woman. And she is learning more about her sexuality and getting more comfortable with being bi. And that's great for her. But it all goes to shit when the clip of Shanique and Zay doing something sexual comes up. Randall kind of says that it was awkward to see. It was weird to see. But Shanique was honest and upfront with him about it while they were taping. She told him, like, that's what happened. That was what went down. Zay did not. Zay did not tell Ray. And whenever Ray hung out with Shanique, because apparently they built a friendship after taping, he would get incredibly defensive and flip the fuck out whenever she would hang out with Shanique. And that was because he refused to tell her that they had done something sexual. He would also accuse her over and over again of messing with Jake, which she didn't do. She didn't have any sexual contact with him outside of like making out, which she admitted to on the show. Once things quiet down a bit, we go back to Randall and Shanique. They actually are no longer engaged. They had actually broken up for a few months and ended up getting back together. Colby and Madeline seem happy, and I give it maybe at most 5 years. That personality that Colby has ain't going nowhere. And that, my friends, is the show. It is incredibly toxic. Stupidest concept for a show that only lends to complete and utter toxic chaos. And that is exactly what it did. I am so looking forward to more seasons. If y'all are stupid enough to bring your significant other on here like that and to put y'all L's on display like that, I will watch. My final thought, I guess, is on ultimatums in general. I don't think anything's wrong with an ultimatum. But I don't think doing one with the purpose of thinking it's going to make somebody do what you want them to do is a good idea. That's a terrible idea. But presenting ultimatums as a way of articulating standards makes sense to me. You know, I'm letting you know what I will and will not accept. And then you state what that is. That, I guess, in and of itself is an ultimatum. And I'm giving you the space to choose what you want to do with that information, knowing the consequences of this. And I think more people, put your foot down, say what you want. At the core, that's what this show is about, if it wasn't with all the messiness. And I stand behind that. I think, you know, saying what you want and what you need is very important in anything, especially relationships. If in a weird, convoluted way, that's the lesson we got from today, then I'm all for it. So that is all, people. I have been talking for so long. If you like this video, feel free to like this video. Follow me on all my social media, Instagram and Twitter, both of which are KennieJD. Feel free to follow me on More Butter, where I have a podcast where I talk about movies that may or may not have deserved to get bad ratings and do poorly at the box office. It's called In Defense Of. Yeah, that's all. And I will see you guys next time.